13C.
All right. Any other additions to the agenda? Mr. Cabe? All right. Let's enter into the public comment period. All right, we have 4 speakers. Scott Baste.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Thanks for always giving us a chance to speak in public. I'm just here to voice my support for the quarter-cent sales tax. For people that maybe don't realize the math part of it, how it works out, it's 25 cents on $100. So you'd have to spend $400 to spend $1 to have an extra dollar at sales tax. That 25 cents adds up to be like $2 million over the year. And we like nice things here in the county, and we have to pay for those somehow. So I think, I'm going to do what I can to help Mr. Shields and Mrs. Bass back there, and maybe Mr. Wildy there, promote this and try to see if we can't get it passed this time, because we need this, and it's a good thing. And thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Baste. Mary Ann Ingram.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Ingram. I've lived in Macon County at 115 Autry Road for 33 years. And all you ladies and gentlemen that are here, and I use the word ladies because we have 2 up here. This is great. We'd love to see more ladies up here. But I've never written anything to express to you all, but tonight I have. We have had a full year with all sorts of emotions and actions. And we have made it the best that I know each of us can possibly make. And understanding and recognizing that we are individuals and we're doing the best that we believe with what we know is the best with every day. And I bless all of you who are up here serving our county and doing a great job with it. I wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. May we welcome this new year, which is going to be coming in like a monster, with all that Christmas brings us this year. Let us express and receive compassion, joy, understanding, and this is expressing and receiving, forgiveness, but most of all, expressing and receiving grace. I have studied a lot about what grace is. And it is just letting things be and understanding. Grace involves love. And so those 2, express and receive grace and love with every opportunity that you have in 2026. Thank you, everybody, for what you've done for us.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mrs. Ingram. Very well said. All right, Lake Silver.
Chairman, thank you very much. Commissioners, great to be with you. My name is Lake Silver, as you mentioned, from Congressman Edwards' office. I wanted to swing by tonight and give you a little bit of an update from the Congressman's office and also pass that along to your constituents. We are still working very hard on the people of NC11's behalf. Few things that the Congressman does. Through legislative action, he sits on both the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee and is always all ears for any suggestions you have for federal legislation that needs to be taken. I also have with me tonight our senior caseworker, Madeline Lehman. We frequently work cases for folks of Macon County to help with veterans benefits, Social Security benefits, anything that anyone has need of from the federal government. We're actually going to be in front of Town Hall in Franklin tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with our Carolina Cruiser for anyone who would like to come see us and talk about that. Finally, a little bit of an update. I am taking a job with the state auditor's office, and so I'm going to be leaving the congressman's office, but still a friend of the congressman's and the congressman's office, and I feel like leaving you in really good hands. Some would say an upgrade. I think probably an upgrade. So, and she is Reagan Bunch. She's going to take over from Haywood County West for the congressman. I'm going to give her a little bit of a chance to introduce herself to you all. So, last 3 years have been fantastic. Thank you all. Look forward to working with you all in my new role.
Thank you, Lake.
Yes, sir.
I'm Reagan. I don't have a whole lot to add. I've met most of you at some point or another before I kind of went into political retirement and started teaching middle school. So I teach in Jackson County at Blue Ridge Early College, and I will be part-time to start because I would not leave my students in the middle of the school year, but I'll be full-time in June, and I'm really looking forward to working with Macon County.
Do you have a card, Reagan? You have a card or anything?
They're in the
You
mail.
do?
They're in there.
Okay.
They're in the mail. We'll get them to you.
I'm going to have the same phone number as Lake, so if you just want to erase his name, you can just put mine in instead.
I won't say it in front of him.
I see it deleting over there.
I see.
God bless you. Hey,
All
Merry
right.
Christmas.
Thank you, guys. Safe travels. All right, Betsy Baste.
Evening, gentlemen and ladies. Nice to see you all. For those who don't come to the meetings in person and watch online, and for those who are sitting in the back of the room and weren't here last month, I want to compliment Jamie Pacou for the incredible presentation she did to help us all understand the landfill and all of the complications. I've been a teacher for decades, and that's the best presentation I've ever seen of how to understand a complicated issue. So I really want to just publicly thank her for that. And hope that we all make good decisions based on the information that she gave us. Second thing, I'm a volunteer at the Macon County Animal Shelter, and I know that we are undergoing some big changes there. The change that you wanted didn't happen. Kind of sad about that, honestly. For once, you and I are on the same page. And what my deepest hope is that I'm not going to have to stand in front of you and tell you that nothing's happened yet. Because right now, it is not good. You know, the laundry situation, if y'all don't know about the laundry situation and trying to get a washer and dryer in there that works, this is not rocket science. I have a washer and dryer that works, and if it breaks down, I'm getting one right away. I understand commercial is different, but I want to see some actual attention given to the employees of that place and to the animals of that place and the volunteers of that place. There are well-documented thousands of hours that the volunteers work there. One day I showed up on a Friday morning, and they told me we couldn't use the restroom. In fact, we can't hose down the kennels because we can't let water go down the drain. And I know that Warren was on top of that and working on that, but here's my problem. Not one person suggested to the staff, hey, we'll get a porta potty with a hand washing station, because this is part of the health department. And so when we're taking care of things like feces and other things,
we need to be able to wash our hands and not just use hand sanitizer. And employees deserve to use the restroom during their workday. Does anybody argue with that? Do we not get to use the restroom? The staff told me, well, we can go up to the health department. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what happens on Saturday, but on Sunday, when I volunteer, another day I volunteer, health department's closed. Where are we going to go to the bathroom? Where is the staff going to? They're still taking care of the animals, but not one person said, let's get you a porta potty, gang. Not one. That's unacceptable to me. So my sincerest hope is that the new administration pays attention to the human beings, first of all, that dedicate to that. And I guarantee you, not one of you would have dealt with that in your work environments, ever, nor would you let your employees deal with that. So please, let's take better care of our staff. And when are we going to get pickleball courts?
Chairman, may I say something here? And I'll address this to you, Ms. Bass. The changes are still coming, it's my understanding. The delay in how we're dealing with the health department and the consolidation and everything else, we thought that it was unfair to bring in a new director and already make changes. So our focus on this is to bring in the new director in January, let her get settled in, and then try to make a decision on where we go to from here with this consolidation. So by all means, we have to take care of the staff and the animals, the animal shelter, and whatever that picture looks like is where this board is going to. We're going to address it.
All right. Any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Hear a motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Breeden. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? Ms. Tammy, 5-0. All right. Now, reports and presentations. Hudson Library Foundation. Hudson Library Foundation Board Member Andrew Schmar? Schmar?
Yep.
All right, come on up.
Good job. All right, it's already on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for letting us come speak. My name's Andy Schmar, and I am the former president of the Hudson Library. I was the president from 2020 to 2022, and I'm the project manager for this New Chapter Begins, the capital campaign, but really the project that's going to result from this. Just a little history. My grandmother was president of the library in 1960-61, so almost, well, exactly 60 years after or before I was. And my mother was on the board in the 80s and the 90s. So I've got a long history with this library, and I feel a certain commitment to it that might not have existed before. I'm joined by Philip Kukuru, who's the current president, and we'll be speaking to you about the details of it, and Hank Ross, who some of you know, who's our landscape architect on this project, because we've got both an interior partial renovation and an exterior improvements that we're intending. So our intent this evening is to familiarize you with a bit of the library's history, to begin with that. As you'll see on the second slide, it's the second oldest library in North Carolina, and has been part of the public realm since 1884, when it was called the Highlands Academy, and it was really just a shelf of books in the Highlands School at the time in 1884. We're going to provide some data on showing you the importance of this community asset, and it is nothing more than a community asset, or it above all else is a community asset, and how it is so important to the surrounding community of Highlands and even the county. Lastly, we'll present you with a case statement and a plan for the first major renovation of this facility. Since it was built in 1985, there was a significant amount of work that was done in 2008, 2009, that was much downsized as a result of the lack of funding at the time. But since then, and really since '85, the library stands as it was when it was built 40 years ago. As somebody who most of you know, in walking through with me a couple weeks ago, said it needs a lick of paint. It needs more than a lick of paint, and we're hoping that through your support and the support of the town of Highlands and the many contributors that we have, that we'll make this facility ready for the next 40 years after it's been in existence for the previous 40. So the library's gone through a whole bunch of changes. The library name has changed. The organization that had governed the library has changed. In 1955, it was decided it would be the Hudson Libraries of Highlands, North Carolina Incorporated. And at that time, the board, that organization, was responsible for both the ownership of the library, but also the governance of the library. Then in '73, a partnership, or the Fontana Regional Library System, emerged on the scene, and the Hudson Library signed an agreement with the Fontana Regional Library System. In March of 1980 was the original lease agreement between the county, Macon County, and then at that time the Hudson Library of Highlands, North Carolina, Inc., which essentially made this a branch of the Macon County Library System. It has been since 1973. The governance of the library, the running of the library, the employees, the salaries and so forth, has all fallen under the Fontana Regional Library System, and all of our employees work for, and our head librarian, new head librarian, works for the county librarian. So our board is nothing more than the owner of the property, the owner of most of the contents of this property, and then the owner of the land. And so that's our focus, is taking care of the facility and improving it in whatever way that we can. We are now the Hudson Library Foundation, just to reduce the, people didn't know, well, you're the library, aren't you running the library and so forth? We don't. We're the foundation that supports the library. We're very similar to a Friends group, just as the Macon County Library has a Friends group. The difference being we own the library, we own the land, as opposed to the county owning it. We have the lease partnership. So our ownership role has changed over the years, and as I said, in 2008, Porte Cochere, the right-hand photo up there, the entry was replaced and added when the Bascom Arts Center moved out of this facility. Thankfully, the County Maintenance Department has been a great partner over the years in providing general assistance and repairs as they arise and as the resources are available. But I have to say, we've been a pretty inexpensive partner for the county over these last 40 years, because the major improvements that have been made, including a 44 kW generator that we just had installed, have been paid for through our fundraising efforts. We've relied upon the county for the general maintenance. I've seen them replacing the light bulbs in the facility. But we're responsible and have felt a great responsibility for this. And so what we don't have is the capacity to do the improvements that we think are necessary. So next slide. So these shouldn't be a great surprise to you. I was actually surprised at the number of distinct visitors that this library has on an annual basis. That represents 120 or so people a day coming into the library. And then you see all of the other things that go on in this library, not dissimilar to any of the other libraries in either Nantahala or the Macon County Library, perhaps on a smaller scale compared to the county, but still a very important part of our community and a community asset. So I'm not going to cover the programs and the services. You all are very familiar with the programs and services that the libraries offer. I was in line to get something notarized today. I didn't know that libraries offered notary services. Ours does, and I think the others do as well. Our partnerships are wide, primarily in the Highlands community, but we offer our services Highlands goes from 1,000 full-time residents to 30,000 part-time residents in the summertime. So our community base is quite broad, particularly in the summertime. And we're involved in a lot of organizations that you see here that you're probably quite familiar with, and many of whom I'm sure have come before you asking for support in some form or fashion. Our community partnerships, again, a lot of organizations that we are involved with and come to our meeting room and use our meeting room, which is offered for free in the building intentionally. So we embarked 5 years ago on a long-range plan, and part of that was a survey that we did of the community. We had over 3,000 responses to that survey, and here are the results. Here are the priorities that our community, that our respondents, who were mostly library users, did. Number one was outdoor space with Wi-Fi and tables. Number two was outdoor space for guest speakers. Number three was redesign of a reading room. Number four, additional community meeting space. So, and there were several others, but this prioritized our focus on how do we improve this library for the next 40 years? What are the needs of the community at this time that are probably going to be the needs of the community for the next several decades at least? And these are where we have focused our efforts and where we focused on where we can do the improvements. So without further ado, and you listening to my history, I'll turn it over to Philip to talk about the details.
So this map. Thank you all very much. So the map you see here kind of outlines what Andy described as the community needs from that survey. I'm happy to walk you through it. So Plan East, which is the south side of the building, that portico which Andy mentioned, that's that square to the right. As you come in the building, into the entry, you make a left, and that square highlighted in a brighter white, that is currently our audio-visual room that has DVDs and books on CD. That catalog will be moved elsewhere, and that space will become 2 additional study spaces and a conference room. The study spaces are an essential resource for students, professionals, local organizations for study and work. We have one current study room that you could see kind of towards the bottom of the building on the map between the children and reading room. It's almost always reserved, and that demand keeps increasing. Then the reading room itself, much of the furniture and shelving systems are pretty outdated in the library. As Andy mentioned, a lot of that is from the original 1985 building of the library. So replacing them will enhance the overall library experience. And then if we move up and to the left, that young adult lounge, with limited safe space throughout the community in Highlands, this young adult lounge will provide an inviting place to study and socialize. It currently is a young adult area, but it's not really walled off or a dedicated space. It's just it's a corner that has some booths. So this will really make it a true place for them. And then the pavilion, if we go down to the left, off of the current meeting room, that utilizes more of the library's existing property. The property is pretty much that whole graphic that we see here. The pavilion will provide additional outdoor meeting space that will almost double the current meeting room size with those 2 double doors. If those are open, it creates a really nice space between the 2 of them. And it'll also provide an outdoor place to read, work via Wi-Fi, and hold community events. So that's an overview, just taking a look at the map. And now we can go through, before, I'll wait on to talk about the outside because Hank is here. So, but we've worked with some great design partners. MPS is an architecture firm that really focuses on library architecture. They've done a great job at helping work through our catalog and make sure everything fits and help select furniture that's appropriate for library use. Ross Landscape Architecture, that's Hank here. He's done a lot of great notable projects throughout Highlands. And then Summit Architecture, another local architecture firm that is helping with construction drawings and design. Oh, just to the right here. And so here are some renderings that help show the before and after of the spaces that I was describing on the map. So here is the young adult room, the current space on the left-hand side, and then after, you could see that real dedicated space for them. And this perspective is looking from outside the room. And then the next rendering is if you were inside that room, so you can get a feel for how that space would function. And then the next rendering is of the reading area. And so on the left is the current furniture, and on the right is that new furniture and lighting. And then the next is the conference and study room. So this is looking from the quiet reading room back down that hallway to the audiovisual room. And you can see in the after the two doors that would provide access to the two private study rooms. And then off to the very far right of that image would be the door to the conference room. And then the outdoor pavilion, and I think this is a good time to segue to you.
Okay. Yeah, the long-range plan identified the need for the outdoor space, but really got into the details with a series of meetings with the library board and staff, and determined really what they needed. The space, as you can see, is from the parking lot is an open space, and then on the right side is really a natural area. That there's not too many natural areas right downtown anymore in Highlands. Go ahead to the next one. This slide shows the after, showing the pavilion that Philip mentioned. It also shows a storage building. And then shows some landscaping. And one of the things that really came to mind was the parking and not to remove parking. We ended up removing only one parking space to do the whole outdoor spaces that we designed. And the goal of the outdoor space is to provide an area really for patrons and the rest of the community. I think other community members will be able to use that pavilion and that space for certain events, fundraising, et cetera, things like that. And that space is about 640 square feet, 20 by 30 feet. And also, we wanted to create additional outdoor space. Why don't you go to the next one? This is the overview plan. The library itself is on the bottom of the drawing, and then the pavilion is the bright white-looking space there, and the storage rooms off to the side. It also includes a patio with a water feature, and so it's going to be actually a very nice space for people to want to sit and read or use the Wi-Fi, or just get out of the library for a little while and have coffee or whatever. And so it also, we're going to have an area, you see the path that runs around through the woods. It's a natural area. There'll be seating in the woods, plantings, and it'll all be handicapped accessible as well. And so let's see, there'll be outdoor lighting also for safety. That's really what I have.
Yep. So this is kind of the big reveal, and you all have seen this. I don't think anybody in the audience has seen it. The total cost of this is split more or less 33% for the outdoor work and 66%, but about $500,000 for the outdoor, about $1 million for the indoor. And you're going, well, I didn't see $1 million worth of work in there, and a lot of it is embedded in those photographs. But we have 40-year-old lighting in there. It was fluorescent. The bulbs have been changed by the county to LEDs, but it's very restrictive in that the lighting is right over the aisles where the bookcases are, but it doesn't allow us to move those bookcases, because if you do, then the lighting isn't directed. So you may have seen on some of the earlier renderings, maybe this is the best one, the lighting is going to be LED lighting. It'll be new ceiling embedded in there, allows total flexibility for anybody over the next 4 decades to move the shelving or whatnot. And it's the state-of-the-art lighting. I think we have 40-year-old carpet in several places here. We're going to replace the carpeting. And at the same time, since we're replacing the carpeting, we need to replace the 40-year-old bookshelves, and we're going to replace those with more state-of-the-art current bookshelves, because we've got to move those bookshelves out to put the carpeting down. So bottom line is, we're at $1.5 million is our total cost. We hope to have this completed, the exterior done this spring, actually, and we've raised enough money. We've had a successful campaign to be able to underwrite those costs, but that still leaves us $1 million that we need to raise by late next summer, because the contractors are going to need to, we're going to need to go identify the contractor, but the materials, we're all familiar with the logistics challenges in getting materials. So things like bookshelves that are custom or that are unique are not off-the-shelf items that we can go buy, the lighting and so forth. We anticipate, our contractors anticipate it could take 4 to 6 months to get some of those materials. And we want to have them pre-staged and ready, because we want to do the interior work. We've been told it can be done if we shut the library down. And sorry about that. But if we shut the library down for 3 weeks, they can do the entire job in 3 weeks. That's moving things out, doing all the work, moving things back in. But they can't have the library staff there. So, but that's what we're paying for, is to keep the library open or get it back open as fast as we can. So we've been discussing how we approach you all. And I had a very bad tactical error here, not coming and meeting with each of you. I should have done that. And I apologize, but because of the compression of schedules and whatnot. We just presented this to the Highlandstown Board about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. I can give you a figure now, and I will be happy to do so, or let you talk amongst yourselves, or whatever you all suggest, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to give you a figure now of what I think we would be asking you to help underwrite this project.
Well, first off, it's a magnificent project.
Thank you.
It'll complement Highlands well. So I guess from fundamentally speaking on my behalf, speaking for myself, I feel like this is an item we take on during our budget season, right? We kind of take this on, after February. And Mr. Cabe down there, we kind of see, how things are trending, how things are tracking. And I feel like we'll do what we can.
And your budget year is 1 July to 30
The budget has to
June?
be passed by July 1.
Right.
Yeah, so we kick off, Warren, what, February the 1st?
Yeah, we'll start departmental meetings February 1st, and
Right.
then the budget will be presented to them probably around the 1st of May.
Well, I'll tell you right now, what we are looking for is about $350,000. It's comparable to other projects that you've helped underwrite in Highlands and that I'm aware of. Be happy to. We don't need the money right now. I mean, I'd love to have the money right now so that we can go forward and move forward. But the timing might actually be perfect for us in terms of we're going to need to commit to contracts and everything about that time. And if we have an assurance through your budget process that there's a line item in there for the Hudson Library, and I can almost guarantee you there's never been a line item in this county's budget, I don't believe, in the last 40 years for the Hudson Library. So we're asking you to break new ground here and help us in that regard. Be happy to work with you. We'll come to workshops, whatever you wish us to do to help make that happen.
Cool. Any other comments?
I'll be glad to touch base with you when we get a little closer, and
Great.
we'll have some conversations.
Perfect.
We'll see what I can do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Very well put
Okay,
together.
thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thank you, Hank.
And congratulations on your tenure and yours, sir.
All right. Update from the Macon County Fair Association and request for funding. Co-Chairman Dennis Conley. Mr. Conley?
Good evening, gentlemen and fair ladies. First of all, I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Hope you have a nice New Year. I am Dennis Conley. I'm the co-chair of the Macon County Fair Association, and with me is Jamie Brooks, who is a fair director and also the president of the Macon County Horse Association. And we have Alvin Doster, who's on our board with us. We'd like to thank you for your kind donation in 2024, and really didn't anticipate coming back before you at this time, but circumstances sometimes change, as you well know. If you've been out to the fairgrounds recently, you'll see a major improvement to the horse arena. The Horse Association has replaced the old arena with new metal, more permanent and stronger containment fences. In doing this, they have asked for a security system by their insurance company in case of vandalism, natural disaster, and any other event. They have paid for the new arena, but do not have the money for the security system, and we don't believe they should be responsible for that anyway. It's on fair property. It should be fair responsibility for security. And we appreciate them putting the fence up, and it certainly makes that area down there at the bottom of the field look so much better than it did before in what they've done. In addition, one of our biggest complaints from the fair and from other different shows that's put out there is we had no Wi-Fi service in the buildings for the little SNAP credit card runs, or what they're called. And we should have thought of that when we did the work last time, but it just didn't come to our mind to do it, that it was that necessary. And we did a survey of the vendors, and that was the number one thing they wanted, was to have some access to be able to use Wi-Fi. And that makes it easier for us to be able to rent if we can say we have Wi-Fi and we can give them a Wi-Fi passcode for that event, then come back and do it. So we tied the two together because we felt like that was the biggest way to do it and the easiest way. I think in your agenda items, you've been given an estimate for these improvements. Now, one thing we did fail to include in it is that the wiring has to be buried from the alumni building down to the horse arena for the cameras and everything to go through. So we're thinking that's going to take about $3,000 additional to bury it. So that's something we would like to ask above and beyond what that estimate there says. If you went out to the last year's fair, it was by far the best attended fair that we have had in my years of working with the fair, and I think Mr. Corbin, who is our longest serving member, said it's one of the largest. Last year, we had Nanahala students there. We had people from Highlands there, which I would encourage them to come in the future. Scaly Mountain. It was nice to see more people than just Franklin. But as you all know, our goal is to continue to improve the grounds each year, and we appreciate it. And it is the one time of the year that most Macon County, you can see a lot of Macon County residents in one place is come to the fair. You're going to see them. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jamie Brooks, who is the president of the Horse Association, to make comments, and then we'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. I do apologize. I'm not a good public speaker. I didn't make a lot of notes or anything, but I do want to echo Merry Christmas to all y'all. We have been blessed, Macon County Horse Association, through grants, donations, and also funding through private investment as far as there's sponsorships and banners around the thing for get our new arena rails put up. It does look a lot better. It's a whole lot safer. It comes in as something we need to do for a long time. We kind of looked over it, Band-Aided it for years and years, and finally we took the bull by the horns this past year and got the word out, and by the grace of God, it all come together. You can go by and look at it, and it looks like a completely different place, honestly. Not patting our own self on the back, but it really does. I know Mr. Shields helped us through some of the grants that we got. We certainly appreciate that. With that being said, I know y'all have, through working with some of y'all, knowing some of y'all, how many people went down there and just turned around or parked for a certain amount of time, used telephone, whatever else. There's no security system on that lower end, what we're asking about. That parking lot is not only used by us during the fair, during the horse shows, but also the fields across the river. And with that being said, that puts a lot of people down there that you don't know about. Some people, great people that you might know them by name. Other people maybe through there that don't have any business being there. It's not where we grew up when I was in high school. It used to be, you go to the fairgrounds, hang out, you was good to go. Everybody down there know you by name. If you got in trouble, Daddy's gonna know about it before you got home. It's not that way anymore. A prime example was when we were down there installing the new panels. There was actually a person had set up a homeless shelter right there in the show barn. Nobody knew about it until we found it. It was not a shelter, it was just a thrown together bunch of pizza boxes and all this nonsense. Being an adult, I called the chairman, let them know about it. But if it had been, some teenagers coming through, the person's still there, it could have been a risky situation real quick. It was dealt with, but with that being said, if we had security cameras in place, 24-hour scanning, not only would have, I think, a lot lower crime rate as far as we've had a few, people come through, do certain things that don't need to be done. That could be seen, law enforcement can see it, know exactly who's there, when they're there. And then also, from the parking lot point of view, for anybody using stuff across the river, if anything, questionable went on over there, that could also be saw through the cameras as far as that goes. And not only would it be able to be used by the Horse Association and the Fair Association, during the use of the fairgrounds for the fireworks and all that stuff. It's a really wide used area then. If, say, heaven forbid, something did take place, we can see exactly where it happened, what caused it, and just from a safety point of view. I do apologize for not having things down, hardcore, where I can point out exactly. We do have a lot of the numbers in front of you to see what the basic cost is going to be. Another thing we have talked about doing, and also in the process of this, is upgrading our lighting that is down there. Duke, with a company of Sumter Utilities, put up a lot of poles and a lot of used lights that were taken down from car lots in different places. Those are 1,000-watt halogen bulbs, and I should hide this, not say Duke said it, but every time you flip those switches on, those meters go crazy. And with everything being done with the Fair Association, the Horse Association, we generate basically all of our own money without sponsorships, other than what sponsorships come in, I'm sorry. And so we have to save money where we can. One thing we would like to do is get those 1,000-watt halogen bulbs down and lights and get some maybe new LED lights put up. I know that's not in front of you, that's kind of above and beyond. And I can get up with other folks and talk to people that would be able to supply those. But that would also make the cameras a whole lot more efficient, like clearer, like crisper, and I just think it'd be a good business move to do that. I do apologize for not having more stuff, lay in front of you or be more polished, but definitely I think it's worth thinking about. I think it's a great thing to use for not only us now, but the children coming up tomorrow have a safe place to go and let the fairgrounds kind of get back to where it used to be, within reason. Not only that, the truckers that come in and out, it's a good place for them to use, but heaven forbid something happens or somebody gets vandalized down there, it don't just say, well, we're going to throw it back on the fairgrounds, we're down here. That way you can see immediately, Sheriff's Department, whoever needs to be contacted can do so. And in any other situation or, emergencies during flooding or anything like that could be seen and made aware of real quickly. With that being said, I do once again apologize for not having everything down. I should have. But I would love to work with you and see if we can get some of this put forward as far as monies to get us, where we need to be as far as getting this a reality, not just a wish, and make it safer for, everybody using it and to be able, apologize again, be able to use our arena and everything we've got in front of us to its fullest capabilities. So thank y'all so much. Once again, Merry Christmas. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Conley for closing.
One thing about the system, I don't want anybody to say that we misled you. The security system we're going to put in is not going to be extremely detailed oriented. It will be a general, it can give you the shape of the vehicle. It might be able to give you the tag. It could possibly give a face, but it's not going to be a clear, crystal clear case because that cost would probably be 4 to 5 times what we're looking at here in talking to integrated installation. So I don't want just to think that we can pinpoint everything, but it's going to help any way we go about it. And we'd be glad to answer any questions.
So in round numbers, you're looking at 25 or 26,000?
Well, if we add the 3 for the around, we would be looking for roughly 26, 27, yes.
So the quote I had was 22,197.
So add
22,198. So if you add.
The sales taxes is included in that.
Okay.
So you would be looking at the 20,793.50, and then if you add the 3,000, we don't have to pay for the sales tax. Pay for it, but we can reimburse. So you'd be looking at about.
But you would do that in the reimbursement.
But so if we were being responsible for paying.
Yeah.
And I do apologize for not having the lighting cost in front of you. That was something we came up with later through the Horse Association. And I thought, well, while we're going in front of you as far as a meeting, go ahead and throw that out, get y'all's opinion on it. I just think it would be a good time to do that while we're, changing everything else up. And that would be something, as a possibility, get back with y'all on as far as the exact cost on that, and if it's doable or not, or, getting together or whatever, teaming up or something.
Appreciate what you do. It's
I
really
think I saw just about every one of you at the fair this year, and I think you can affirm that the attendance some nights was just unbelievable. We had the best revenue generating that we've had, but you've got to remember that's primarily our revenue generating for the year. And with our insurance that we have to pay, pretty much what we generate at the fair covers our insurance, during the fair itself, covers our insurance for the year, for the liability, and every, buildings and everything. We're spending roughly $15,000 a year just on insurance for the grounds and the liability against us as directors and everything. You take $15,000, that could go towards a lot of improvement but you can't have it. When I came on the board, we literally had no insurance on the properties. That was one of the first things. Talked to Mr. Prophet, says, we got to do something about that. We can't afford that,
Comments?
The only thing I'll say, to Jamie's point, I went down there the other day, and it's a really good-looking arena. You guys have done a great job. But I did talk to a couple members of the Horse Association about the lighting, so I would like to see some numbers on that. And I don't know if that would help. You're paying all that insurance, you might as well have some rodeos and some barrel races and things like that. Maybe generate a little bit more money, but maybe we can get some numbers on that.
Our problem is our insurance won't let us have a rodeo. The ag department had to have it, and with the liability against us, because our insurance specifically said there would be no rodeos.
Let me throw you a few questions. So, the date on this estimate's May 12th. It says it's good for 30 days. Have you talked to this bunch?
Yes, I have talked to Eric. He's
going to honor that price?
He's going to honor it. I'll be very close to it. We've got a little money if we screw up.
I'd like to question your thoughts on the security cameras. I feel like you have to run the wire. You have to buy the modem. It seems to me like you upgrade the camera. I mean, if there's an event and you need to identify a vehicle and all you see is a blur, I'd like to know what the cost difference is. The wires are already ran, you have to buy a hard drive.
Well,
buy a good system where you can zoom in and you can read the writing on their shirt. If you're going to have a security system, have a good one.
We certainly can do that. When I was talking to Eric Hall at Integrated Installation about it, see, the reason we went with him is because we already got the system in place. Some of that stuff, we're just going to have to buy extras to run it through that's the reason it's got to run from the alumni building, because that's where we have all the data, computer and data stuff sitting there. So we're not going to have to buy as much stuff because we've already got the system up. But the cameras, we can certainly talk to him and see what kind of upgrade we got.
That's just my 2 cents, but.
But I think it's good to put it in there. We're talking about safety, and you can't put a price on some of that. So while we're looking at it, let's go for whatever it's to be. Safety is key.
Well, and the county uses our property a lot, which we appreciate. We've had it twice for parking for the events in the thing, and as they have more and more events in the old rec park, you're going to need that for parking, because that's our biggest issue. Is we have parking issues no matter what, and so that security is. We're not adding any security out there to where the vendors in the field is. We've got some camera there, but it's primarily around the horse arena. But and then Manna is used. Our property is used by county residents, a lot of county residents, and it wasn't only one homeless. We've had homeless issues for 3 years now, pretty bad. I mean, when you go out there and pick up needles and everything else, and they defecate right on the floor of the stage. It's not nice.
And I guess
one thing might I add, I didn't mean to apologize. To answer your question, as far as the lighting, we definitely do need to add that. I did forget to mention a minute ago, we have been gifted on occasions by the county to bring out the light towers that we do have to have in place just in case some of our barrel races or rodeos or whatever event does go into the nighttime, because the lighting we have there is not sufficient. We do have one or two that's out. Unfortunately, I've not been able to work on those lately just due to insurance purposes, not through us, but through company, and I'll leave that out. And so with those light towers in place, it is doable. But as you can imagine, between if there's also other emergencies going on or whatever else, and those light towers are not available, it would make it really, really tricky to get all the lighting there that is necessary, that we do have to come out a night or two before, get everything set up, put in place, turned on, and adjusted, where that way it hits where you need it and not just hitting in the wild blue yonder. And if we had, lights that were there existing, you come in, turn on a switch, and they're boom, and it lights up everything up immediately, that would make a huge difference. And I apologize for not having that a minute ago.
I'm assuming you've already spoke to the power company about it's cheaper to run on the customer side than it is on their side?
Yes, sir.
To run floodlights?
Basically, what's going on right now, the floodlights that are available, I'm not asking as far as price, just because it's kind of a off-the-record type thing, is they recommended that we probably go through and find our own new LED type floods, where it's not just through them, but I can talk to them, again, through the lighting side of that, and get some more numbers, and then also get those numbers as far as the light back to y'all.
I don't want to run
And I
you.
apologize for not having that information.
No, I don't want to run you guys through the mud, but I feel like I'd rather measure twice, cut once.
No
And
problem.
I'd like to see a good security system out there, just in case there's an event of theft or somebody parks there.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt,
We covered the main arena and the vendor area with the last thing that you did, between the state and that, but we didn't do the horse arena because
Yeah.
we just didn't see the need at that time. Now we have a need to do it.
What's kind of your timing on this project?
We would like to see it before,
I would love to see it before the first shows come out this coming year. However, we'll do it as quick as possible. And get
we'd like to have it
all-
before the fair next year, but,
Absolutely.
we would like to have, any vendors that are renting the building, I'd really like to have them to have Wi-Fi to where, that's a good selling point in people wanting to rent our building, is they have Wi-Fi. We put heat and air in there. Now, if we could say we got Wi-Fi, they see a modem sitting up there, but that came through the COVID, and it's only pinpointed right outside for maybe 15 feet, and you gotta have a special code to get in, and gotta jump through every hoop in the country to get there.
What do you think?
No, I think it's great. Also, the big 250-year American celebration next year for the 4th of July, and this project really should be completed before that time frame.
I would like to have it early spring personally.
Yeah. And also, when you're talking about Wi-Fi, when you cross the river where we placed the amphitheater, is that actually going to, would it be available?
No, the Wi-Fi that we're gonna be doing is purely in the building itself.
Okay.
We're not gonna be able to do it out there.
So you should have cell coverage out there. It's inside that metal building
Yeah.
where you don't have service while they need Wi-Fi.
Well, I think they
Am I
brought
right?
in Starlink for the concerts and stuff.
For additional.
Yeah, for the big concert out there. So, so that was.
Well-
So no, I think I've been out there many times, all through the rec park with the crazy stuff that's going on out there. By all means, there should be some lighting out there and some security.
All right.
maybe-
So come back next month and bring,
So-
if we get some numbers, or let Warren know, and just, he'll give them to you. How do you want us to?
And listen, we're free to, I don't want you to have to wait a month. You can interact with us throughout the month. Send us kind of what you have, and let's be prepared next month
Okay.
to take action. And at least if that ball starts rolling, in January, hopefully
Yeah.
this thing's done in spring.
Yes.
Right? So I think we're just a little bit ill-prepared tonight, but I think the ball's rolling, and
Well,
let's keep it going.
We just wanted to get on the agenda just because we'd like to see it roll. We was hoping to, was thinking about getting it before this year, and realized that it was just this year's
Yep.
25 fair. We just realized that it's not fair to you or to us to try to get something done that quickly.
And it might help just to kind of see, maybe get a quote from the power company to provide, outdoor flood lighting, and let's just run a cost analysis,
Absolutely.
Okay,
So, all right.
thank you.
y'all so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Appreciate it.
All right. That wraps up reports and presentations. Moving on to old business. Item A, update on the Local Government Commission's approval of the landfill construction. Solid Waste Interim Director Jamie Pacou and Manager Warren Cable.
Mr. Chairman, I'll start. Obviously, at the last board meeting, you all approved us sending a potential financing package to the Local Government Commission for their review and potential approval. I'm pleased to say that that presentation went to them on December 2nd. We were approved. There were no concerns or any kind of issues that were mentioned by the LGC. So now the question is, what do we do now? And I'll have to say, I've been here 30 some odd years. This is probably one of the hardest proposals I've ever had to lay on the table up here and make it a sales pitch, if you want to say that. Most of the projects that I bring to you, there's some curb appeal. There's something that drives us to get there. This is not a rec park. You don't have the pickleball question coming back there. It's not a life safety issue. That was for you, Betsy. It's not a life safety issue per se. We're buying an ambulance or it's a patrol car, but it's something that most of the time we don't want to talk about, but we certainly need. And unfortunately, we're in a situation at this point where we have to make some tough decisions. It's not a pretty project. Building a landfill is not usually what folks wake up every morning and dream of doing every day. We've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about hybrid models. We talked about hauling. We've looked at different options. We've talked about the parcels over there. I don't necessarily like all the options. However, I have to give you a recommendation that I think, for me, is the way that I think we need to go. And honestly, at this point, I feel like, based on the information that we have, I think we need to proceed with the financing approval for the landfill cell construction and approval of a bid. I also understand that we and I know I've made you all aware of it, we're obviously into some financial planning for the landfill in general. And as we go through the next 6 months and we get into the budget year, I'll be able to speak more intelligently about where we're at with that process. We've talked about hauling. Can we integrate that somehow? Can we make a hybrid model? How do we value the property? How do we make the sale last longer? How do we figure all that out? And that's a pretty complicated equation. Like I said, this is probably one of the hardest proposals I've had to put on your table, but I have to give you a recommendation that I feel is where we need to be. So tonight, my recommendation to you would be to approve the financing package for the construction of cell 2A, 2B, which is a 12.5 acre cell, and which is in phase 3, and to adopt the bond order authorizing the issuance of special obligation bonds. Now, I also want to make sure, and I'm certainly not a financial expert, but with the issuance of, when I say special obligation bonds, one of the things with those is it doesn't, you're not required to pay for this debt with your general fund revenue. Matter of fact, it basically assures you that the revenue for the enterprise has to pay this debt, which is what we've done for the last 10 years with the sale that we have there now. We're getting ready to make the last payment on that. Matter of fact, as part of this financial package, that was one of the contingencies, that we make the last payment, which we had already budgeted to do anyway, pay that off, and then turn around and enter into new debt service for this sale, which we hope is going to get us to 10 years. So tonight, the first thing that I would recommend is to approve that financing package and adopt the bond order authorizing the issuance of those special obligation bonds.
Mr. Cable, I'd like to make a motion that we connect with Webster Bank and follow your recommendation. Y'all worked hard on this, and I think at this time I'd just like to make a motion to follow your direction.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Shields,
Second.
second by Commissioner Antoine. Further discussion.
Jamie, thanks for, all you do. Thanks for the presentation last month. It was great. And thank you for, I went down there, I don't know when that was, a couple weeks ago, and took a tour of the landfill. So I just kind of want to get some clarifying questions. My hesitation on this is, I feel like we're backed into a corner. We don't have enough time to do anything other than build a landfill. So it's just hard to sit here and think, man, we're going to burn, like 20, if we do both cells or both phase 3, both cells, we're going to burn like 24 acres or whatever it is of a 43 acre piece of property we have for 10 years, and then what happens after 10 years or what happens after 30 years? I mean, eventually, and I think you said it last month, eventually you're not going to be able to landfill anymore. We're going to have to transfer. So I feel like we've kind of, for me personally, just, I feel like we're backed into a corner where we have to make this decision. And I don't think it's the best decision. I think that if we could figure out how to transfer and save that land, until maybe for the future or future buildings or whatever it ended up being, then so be it. But what I worry about is this 10-year landfill turning into a 5-year landfill if we have another bad, run, which I hope we don't. But, so it's just really hard to sign on to $10.5 million or $13 million with interest and go that route. What's our time on the landfill that we have right now?
They predict, I think, June or July, but it's probably going to be before that.
And that is if we're still bringing Highlands down to Franklin. What if we go to that hybrid model and we start transferring out of Highlands?
It would be about a fourth of the waste not brought down.
So get us a few more months, maybe.
Yeah.
So you're saying July of this year, we're out of capacity?
And how long is it going to take to build this cell?
Well, 210 days is the first part of it, so that's cell 2A. And then I think it was 310 days for the full thing. So we do have a few things we can do if we are going to build that cell. We can go back over to phase 3, cell 1, and start overfilling. And then if we have too much there, then we can just move it directly to that cell that's right next to it. So we could do that instead of having to transfer temporarily.
So I think when we met, you said 10% is what we can fill on that other one. Is that right?
Yeah, up
So
to
is that-
10%, and then you don't have to move it.
You don't have to move it.
Yep.
If you go over 10%, you got to.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to predict until
sure.
they actually do the survey to close it, and then we would have to move.
And I will address, the waste stream coming in. Obviously, we've had a couple of really bad years. Our waste stream has been beyond the percentages that we estimated. And that's one of the other things that we want to talk about as we get into this planning process over the next 6 months. Look at the stream that's coming in. We're going to look at the financial end of it, look at the business end of this, because it's a business. That's the point I wanted to make with special obligation bonds. It's a business. It has to stand on its own 2 feet. We really need to look at that program. We're talking about a different Carson Convenience Center somewhere. One of the big things we've talked about with it is make recycling more accessible for folks or easier for folks to recycle.
More appealing.
More appealing. So the flip side of this is we need to work with people to figure out how to decrease that waste stream that's coming in. I was talking to somebody the other day. It amazes me how much trash I generate during a week. I don't know where it all comes from. And then, how can we generate revenue off of that? We brought up the reference to mattresses. They tend to be one of the cheaper things that you can put in a landfill, but they take up the most space because you can't compact it and you can't get the airspace from around it. So that makes that cubic yard of airspace that we're selling somewhere less valuable. If we can work all this together into a big picture, and I agree, I feel like we're backed into a corner because we don't have a lot of options. But I think at this point, for stability for you all, for financial stability, so that I can't tell you that we're not going to change, something won't go up next year, fuel may go up, mechanical stuff may break. But I can offer you a reasonable amount of financial stability within reason with this sale. Then we can address some of the hauling things. We look at that capacity. We talked about hauling part of Highlands out. It'd be a quarter of the waste. Obviously, there's a revenue stream there that we can't take away a quarter of the expense of the landfill because we're already in the landfill business. But we might can take away a little somewhere. If we can put all that together into a really detailed financial picture, and you all know I'm a detail person when it comes to the number parts, then we can put a proposal back on your plate this budget year, next budget year, and the budget year after that to get you to where you want to be, so that if this thing, maybe we can make it last 11 years or 12 years, and we look at the dollar figures, and it works out on paper financially to haul 2 loads a week to Georgia or 2 loads a week somewhere else.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to go with, is if this goes through tonight and passes, I just don't want this to be, and I know this, some dynamics on this board may change, I just don't want this to be something that's dropped at someone else's feet in 9.5 years, and it feels like for me what it is, because I haven't been here that long, but I just don't want that to be the case. We need to start planning now for the future, and the future is trash, and we're not going to get rid of trash. I mean, we generate so much trash, and we got to figure out what to do with it. So like you said, we're not going to get permitted for another landfill. So how do we make that happen? To me, we need to plan to simultaneously start a transfer station, which would take money, obviously. But over the long run, we could haul 2 or 3 days a week or whatever, and just landfill a minimum amount of time, and maybe make this thing last 20 years. And save some land that we can't get back.
And I will say, you will have some notice of that, it's shortening, your time is shortening, because we do a survey every year. We have to do a capacity survey. So you will know that, you will be able to see that year by year, if your waste is increasing, how much longer you have, those types of things. It won't just be a sudden 9 years, oh my gosh, we're full, it would be, you would realize it. So, and again, it wouldn't make the financial sense if it was short, like 5, but hopefully we would have kind of notice before that happened.
I would hope so.
Well, I have a few comments. If you sit down with your family and eat Chick-fil-A, it's like the whole tray is full of trash. When you go to the dumpster, it's kind of sad, really. But, I'm thinking about Highlands. Highlands, in my opinion, for the most part, most of the usable land has been built upon. So for people to build in Highlands, you tear down a house to build a house. And I think we're seeing a lot of that up there, which is adding a lot of capacity. You tear down a house, it's 50, 60 to 100 dump truck loads. The houses up there aren't very small. And there's a lot of merit to what Mr. Breeden has to say. I think to add to some of his comments, I'd like to see a very detailed, comprehensive 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, how do we get to 35 years? What's your vision for this county to get 35 years without, essentially, this is 10 years, and the loan is 10 years. So essentially, when this matures, you start all over, right? So I feel like we need to go one more step so the next board's not blindsided, right? Can you do that for us? Can you get us something? How do we get to 35 years? Even if it's transferring. If transferring is the option, and we preserve the hole that we just built, we operate neutral to transfer. Sorry.
I was just trying to verify. So the cell that you're talking about, phase 3, cell 2, you want that to be 35 years? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm
or
just
you
asking,
want the whole hole?
I want to know how Macon County, the
Oh.
citizens, can have a 35-year plan on where to take their trash.
Okay.
I think the 10-year number it's a little bit eerie to hear that, right?
Sure.
And that'll be potentially in your career path, right? Like, I
Right.
think it's in everybody's best interest. But how do we get there? It's kind of thinking outside the box. Is it transferring? We could transfer for 10 years, right? And then the downside of that is, the cost of transfer is what it is, but you raise the rates, the dump fees. And some people don't want to dump at the landfill because it costs too much to dump, and they dump it over the bank.
Right.
So you have to be careful right there. Those fees need to stay reasonable, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of very, very complicated issues inside of this, but I just want to look a little bit deeper to Commissioner Breeden's point.
So is this a 30, or do we have 30 years left
We should.
on 43 acres?
And I'll speak to that a little. I've learned a lot about the landfill business, and this cell, this cell is an area that's sitting here somewhere, and the next potential cells are going to sit beside it, and we keep talking about the airspace. Well, essentially, you're building a triangle over that space, so when you connect those, what the acre that may get you X number of years now, when you spread that out, the triangle gets bigger, the airspace gets greater, so therefore your capacity actually grows a little more. So the acre, if you were to do another cell, would actually have more capacity than this cell because it's interconnected,
So
if that makes sense.
one cell,
Yes.
another cell, and then you would go
Right.
up.
You-
That gets us
you-
our 30
yes,
years.
yes.
So what happens in
And-
30 years?
You'd have to transfer.
Have to transfer.
We did a study whenever they started Phase 3 to look at all the property in Macon County, and that is the only spot that can have a landfill if the rules stay the same.
And she and I have talked about this. We've talked about technologies, we talked about incineration. We've talked about shredders, which fascinate me, that you make that smaller and you compact that airspace and you offset the cost of the shredder because I gain more space in that landfill. And then honestly, this is not just our problem. This is a problem across the whole U.S. and the world. So I'm hoping that somewhere, one of Mr. Shields' students somewhere along the way comes up with a technology that saves us somewhere.
Yes, your area, John.
And then, we even talked, I will throw it out there, we talked last month about privatization of, for instance, like, it doesn't necessarily affect this cell, but privatization of the brush and the other woody debris. Maybe there's some other options in here that we look at that somewhere in the future that somebody pops up
I
and
think there's
saves
merit
us.
to that. If we don't put organic material in the landfill, it's all about buying time. And let somebody in the private sector. John, did you have some comments?
Well, no, I mean, you guys pretty much hit on everything, really that I was gonna, state was, yeah, we are watching in Highlands mansions being torn down to build bigger mansions. And it seems like, I'm not sure, Joe was in here somewhere. You gotta pull a demolition permit. I haven't pulled those numbers, but I see dump truck after dump truck after dump truck hauling. And we only have, 4 trailers in Highlands Transfer Station and our, team that is actually hauling from Highlands, to the Macon County landfill. A lot of times they can't keep up. And sometimes we get into a violation with, these trailers and stuff sitting there. And I was thinking on the logistics part of it for transferring. When that semi pulls that trailer out on 28 and they turn right and they go into Highlands, back down 106, into Dillard, back through Otto, into Franklin to the landfill. And then you think, okay, when they come out of Rich Gap and they get to 28 and they turn left, they go down 28 and they turn on War Woman to go to Homer, Georgia. Well, one of these days I'm going to make that trip just to see what time frame it is. But I almost think that the timing could be actually the same or maybe just a little bit longer for the company that actually hauls this garbage over there. And really, the former director of the landfill stated that, Macon County depends on the revenue coming from Highlands to make the Macon County landfill actually break even. So there's a concern, but realistically, the biggest concern is we're taking 40-some acres, we're gonna turn it into a landfill, and then in 30 years, unless what you said, if we have some god-awful pandemic again that causes this crazy to fill in, where do we go in 30 years? And I think right now is where we need to be planning for the future, not worrying about 5 years or 10 years. And today, this board and the manager and you, we need a long-term plan. And we're all afraid right now of spending $10 million, $13 million of destroying more land when ultimately we're going to have to either have an incinerator, we're going to have to transfer this stuff. So my opinion is we start now and this is what we deal with. And we save that land, and if we build this cell, then we can do that. But, I'm really, I mean, we put it back out for bids. The bids came in, and they were, we could really function with that. But Commissioner Breeden said it best. We're not gonna, never have garbage unless life is no longer. And so I'd like to have a plan of a long-term solution to this and not destroy the rest of that land over there.
Jamie, if we went like partially hauling, would that make a dent in terms of like extending the time?
What? Again,
could you-
Highlands is a fourth of our waste. They're already a transfer station. They're already ready to go to transfer out. So it's a fourth of our waste yearly. So you would extend that, yeah.
If we did that down here, how much further would that extend it?
Well, it just depends on how long you would do it. I wouldn't advise doing it down here. You would be losing money because we're not set up to do that. If we had to do it temporarily, we could probably do it. It just would not be financially best for the county to do that, to be honest.
That'd be like a worst case scenario.
Yes.
And I'll add on to that, we mentioned at the last meeting, we were trying to apply for some DEQ grants that would help turn that facility in there in Franklin actually into a transfer station, which is what Highlands is. It's actually permitted differently. It's actually functions differently. Well, I had to grasp this to understand why it wouldn't work down here, but it essentially comes down to the fact that down here with the facility we have, you're only going to pack about 75% of the waste
Best case
into one of
scenario.
those trailers that you do in Highlands. So therefore, every 4 trips that you take out of here, you're going to have to add another trip somewhere, which adds on another trip fee, which is why economically it's hard to make that work out without that facility. And I agree with the long-term plan, which is I would love to see this sale happen to get us started. It still leaves us 24 and a half acres out there that we could do something else with later if you decide to do something else, taking into consideration the buffer. Now residential, that could be offices, but residential, the buffer would be way greater. You're not going to have much property left because we're already a landfill. I would love to look at the hybrid model and put all these pieces together and develop you that plan and come up with a solution. So we or whomever else is sitting in these chairs is not dealing with this, again, feeling like we're backed into a corner somewhere in 8 years or 10 years or 15 years or whatever that is.
So I might have missed this, but population growth, has that been kind of factored into this?
Yes, so something interesting that McGill told me is that usually trash follows population growth, but we have surpassed that. Our trash has now gone way above population growth. Yeah. And
That's another reason.
It's a good thing, but not in trash sense.
That's another reason that we talked about, we need to get a hold of our processes, try and get that waste stream down, manage it better. And I hate to say it, maybe it costs more than $1.50 to put a mattress in. If we're taking up X amount of space, then maybe the mattress needs to be charged more. That's the things that we need to look at, which unfortunately is going to take us time that I just don't have at the moment.
Is it feasible to build this cell, and then also a transfer station in that 10 years? Because in 10 years, are we going to be sitting here saying, we should have built a transfer station, but we couldn't?
It is if you have the money. We do probably have some area that we could put a transfer station that wouldn't conflict with our current operations. But, like McGill said, it's probably going to cost you $8 million to build a transfer station right now.
And that's the other reason that we're going to go after those DEQ grants hard, because they're recycling grants.
Mm-hmm.
They are hyper-focused on managing that waste stream. And we're one of the few counties, not every county has a landfill. So we stick out to them in a good way that they would like to help us hopefully get somewhere. So that's why we're going to follow that path to get the funding in there so we can keep those rates down that we talked about, and we're not overcharging people or having to have an excessive charge on a tipping fee or an availability fee somewhere.
What's the time frame of if we were to build a transfer station at some point?
18 months
To build it?
to get it permitted, designed, and built. Yep.
So another question would be, we're talking about 10 years of possibly making that decision to transfer. We've already been turned down by one group that they could not take our garbage. So I think we also stand a risk of that happening in other places. And I fear that if we don't get locked in to someone to take our waste, we may not have the option if we wait longer to get on board with these other companies.
Can agree to that.
Well, I was just going to say, just the last thing I'm going to say is, I think you've done a great job. I think the tour was great, the presentation was great, but it's just something that I don't think I can support, only because, again, I just feel like I'm kind of new to this, and I just feel like it's a pressure point. Like, I just don't think it's the right move. I feel rushed. I feel like we're spending a lot of money to do this. I feel like we should have had another opportunity to look at some more, some options. And so it has nothing to do with you or your presentation or anything like that. It's just me personally. It's hard to support a, $10.5 million project that ends up being, $13 million with interest, and it's not even going to last us, probably 10 years, So, and then we have to either start over or at the same time, we're trying to build that transfer station because that's probably the future.
So, quick comment. We're grilling you right now, and
done great.
you're an interim director, and you're doing a wonderful job. All right, so it's all business.
No, and again, I'm not like, let's do a landfill. I think it's the best option with what I presented, but whatever you decide, that's what we're going
I
to do.
agree with Barry. I mean, what I can't get out of my head is if we're at capacity in July, we don't have a transfer station. That's what I'm saying. It's like, then what, right?
Right.
So I feel like I have to do that. I can't wrap my mind around a 10,000 square foot metal building that's open on a concrete slab costing $8 million. Joe, am I missing something right here for a transfer station? And we have partials down there.
Huh?
I mean, it's going to depend on how big it is, but how big are the
Do what?
transfer station? How big would it need to be?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, they would have to do traffic studies because everybody who goes to landfill would have to go there. Your
And
large
that's
haulers,
down a
all
rabbit
that.
hole, and
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
expect you to have that answer, but it's something I want to talk to McGill about.
Sure.
And maybe we repurpose something we have, but I think we need to get on that road of a transfer station pretty quick. Like if it's a year and a half, that needs to happen very quick. But I agree with everything everybody said. I feel like it is what it is. We have a motion by Commissioner Shields and it's second by Commissioner Antoine. So
I said one thing in that motion, when you vote, please include to pass the budget amendment and the capital project ordinance as part of that motion for the bond ordinance.
do we need to amend the motion? Can we just include that? Yes. We can include it?
Yes, and Tammy, did you hear that amendment?
Josh,
Commissioner,
may
sure.
I ask one more question? The enterprise fund, do you actually have the funds in the enterprise fund to pay for this loan without raising fees to the taxpayers and the citizens of Macon County? So realistically, it's not going to cause anything with the county budget, the county taxpayers. It's all based on coming out of your business.
Yes.
And we're not looking at 3 months from now, you coming and saying, hey, we have to jack these fees up to pay for this and everything else.
It wouldn't be for the landfill. It would be because of other rising costs.
Yeah,
If that,
and that would be part of the financial planning. I mean, if that's the direction we want to go in a year and a half or 24 months, we want to have a transfer station, then we need to get an honest figure for that. We need to calculate that out, figure out what it needs to be. Then we need to have that discussion during budget time, and somebody like Mitch that comes in and you instead of going up $20 one year, you go up $2 this year and $2 next year, and you build that into a growth scale that's doable for folks that looks at how your economy's moving and how things are changing, and that should be part of that financial planning.
Well,
But we were very pleased with the offering we got from Webster Bank. Obviously, the interest rate is higher. We got an astronomically low rate 10 years ago, which was, Lindsay, 2.3% or somewhere in that neighborhood, which is unheard of anymore. We didn't get a bad rate because we look good financially. I will say we do have the option to refinance that somewhere down the road. So obviously, if the economy takes a turn and those rates are better, we can certainly do that. But I'm confident with the debt service dollar figures we have now. First payment doesn't come until October 2026. So we're good with our debt service this year, and I'm confident that we can handle that.
the feds were supposed to lower the rates, they did that.
I didn't get that email, no.
But realistically, when this enterprise fund, this business was established, it was established to move forward in segments with the funds that you bring in to operate the landfill. So it's really just like any other business that you have to reinvest, but, I really want to get really down in the nitty-gritty with the future of this garbage problem, so.
I have the same want.
Yeah, and I don't think that really we have any choice but to, at this point, I mean, I hate it. I hate to destroy more land, but just like you said, we're backed into a corner, and what do you do? I mean.
I feel like you're trying to pressure me into.
People dumping the garbage all over the bank.
I feel that way too, Barry.
I mean, you're right. We don't
Okay,
have an option.
let's move this thing along here. All right, any other comments before we call it to a vote? All right. All in favor, please raise your right arm and state aye for the record. Aye. Oppose, like sign.
Aye.
All right, Ms. Amy, please let the record reflect a 4-1 vote.
Great job, Jamie. Thank you.
So, Mr.
Just,
Go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry.
did you guys want to know what other counties around us are charging? Because I have that table.
Sure.
Yes? No?
Please.
Okay. So I just had some questions about where we stand. So I did the closest 7 counties around us. And this table just is kind of comprehensive. It's either if they have a transfer station or a landfill, their tip fee, the availability fee if they have one, the number of convenience centers they have, and the tons they handle, or the tons they handled last year. And then if they're open on Sundays or centers, and if they're open on holidays. The bottom row is the average. I just thought it was good to have maybe a middle point there just to show you. So just based on this table, after compiling it, I realized we have both a transfer station and a landfill, which no other county around us has. We have 11 centers, which is the most, and we handled the most waste out of those 8 things. Now, I do want to call just a couple points. Clay County has 88 and 100. They are going up to 100 in January. Jackson County, I put their availability fee is 125. 125 is actually for a 3-bedroom house. They do a tiered system for households, and so each number of bedrooms is a different price, and then businesses is actually lower than that. Haywood, they charge $55 for their MRF, but that's only for small haulers and residential. Everybody else has to go to White Oak. Swain, 115 for the availability fee is just for residential. Commercial has a tiered system, and I think that tops out at 550 for restaurants. Transylvania County is a little unique. They do pay as you throw instead of an availability fee. Based on their website, that is the only county I could not get a hold of to talk to personally, but they, I'm pretty sure, charge $3 a bag, and that's a sticker system. And just, now, this is back in 2020, so it's a little different, but Transylvania County also did a similar study where they did landfill versus transfer station because COVID increased their waste. And they found landfill was cheaper over 25 years by $7 million. And the 25-year mark is their estimated capacity going forward. So that was just a little tidbit. It's all on their website if you want to check that out. But, so I just wanted to provide that with you just to show you where we stand.
Jamie, is it possible to take, and limit on how many bags of waste goes to the convenience centers?
Yes, but I'm not sure how you do that. Do you do a punch card, like thinking that through as me, if I go to the center, how am I gonna know that I came in? Now, you could only bring one bag a day, or something similar to that, but I think that's a little more challenging.
Yeah, because, I go into the convenience center on Highlands Road, and I can't tell you, every time I go in there, there will be a pickup truck there that's just rounded off with bags of garbage, and it's wrong. They should, and there's no doubt in my mind, these people are operating a business at no cost to them by hauling off waste and using the convenience center, and it's eating the taxpayers and the landfill alive. And it really needs to be watched because it's.
And something other counties do, they do a sticker system. So when you pay your property tax, you get a sticker and you put that in your car, and that allows you to use the centers. If you do not have a sticker, you cannot use the centers. So I know a lot of counties do that to try to regulate that. The center attendants are also able to tell people like that, no, you can't dump here, you have too much, you can go to the landfill. If it's household, you won't be charged, but you cannot use the center. So they are allowed to say that. Just depends on who's doing that and who's not.
So, Mr. Chairman, now that we've approved a financing package, we need to consider the bids for the actual construction of that cell. If you all remember right, we took bids back in the summer. We actually rejected those bids. We adjusted the bid specs. A lot of it had to do with allowing subcontractors to perform some of the work because it's such a specialty field. And we did receive bids back. We received 5 bids. Based on the availability of the financing package and the dollar figures that we've looked at, it would be my recommendation that the bid for $8,411,889 be awarded to FM Kitchens Construction Services for construction of cell 2A, 2B, contingent upon myself and legal counsel reviewing the licensure of those folks and the subcontractors and their qualifiers, and to allow me to enter into a contractual or a process to negotiate a contract with those folks. Eric, did I miss anything legally on that?
Yeah, so you're giving warranty of authority to enter into that contract.
And we will obviously verify, we'll have a bid bond to verify, we'll verify the qualifiers and the licensure and make sure we're good before we enter into that.
All right. Gentlemen, you heard the man. Thoughts?
Well, Mr. Cave and I have talked about it, and me personally, he studied it, and I feel like he's more expert at this than I am. And so I sure don't mind making a motion to support his recommendation.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Shields,
Second.
second by Commissioner Antoine. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right arm and state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Tammy, please let the record reflect a 5-0 vote.
Jamie?
Yep.
All right.
You've done a good
Is that all you
job.
need?
Tell Mom and Daddy I said hi.
Just say that. You should have been a swim coach.
She's swimming in trash now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Keep it clean, keep it clean. Keep it clean, put that stuff in there.
No more nerve pills.
Okay.
Shot.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Get you an interview.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, update on opioid grant request. County Manager Cabe.
So gentlemen, you remember back in, I believe it was July, we applied for an opioid planning grant from the Dogwood Health Trust. And what that was intended to do was to get us kicked off in our planning process and develop the strategic plan that's required for us to have in place before we can actually spend down the opioid monies that we've been receiving. It's the first step in that process, and I'm proud to say that we were notified a week or so ago that we were awarded that grant, which is $300,000. So our next step will be developing a committee to develop that plan on how we're going to spend that, and probably engage a contractor to actually develop the plan that meets those specs, because we certainly don't want to have a situation some of the other counties have gotten into, that they improperly spend that fund and then they turn around and have to pay that money back. So I just want to update you on that, and I'll bring you back some more information in January about how we're going to proceed with that.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Mr. Cabe. All right. Let's see here, redistricting. Commissioner Sherrill.
Mr. Chairman, you remember back in 23, we had a resolution drafted asking the General Assembly to approve the Macon County Board of Commissioners to look into how Macon County's districts are elected. And it was, the resolution was approved 3-2. It was sent in to Representative Gillespie. It made it through the Rules Commission, or committee, and we had a board change in the process, and Representative Gillespie wanted a new resolution for this purpose. So and at that time, I think there was some confusion, because it's my understanding that the General Assembly, they don't tell us how to district our county. They tell us, yes, they approve of us looking into it. And by all means, that was not once they approve it, then we debate it as to whether or not Macon County commissioners are elected fairly. And in my opinion, we are not. District 1 and District 3 is disenfranchised, because if you're in District 1 and District 3, you may only seek office once every 4 years. If you're in District 2, you may seek office every 2 years, because of the District 2 is how we offset the alternating elections of this board. And so I would like to make a motion that we send a new resolution into the state, and not asking them to tell us how to district this to our county. And that's their job, is to, it's unfair, and that's what they're to do, is to look at it and tell us they agree. And then once it goes through the Rules Committee, it goes on the floor, the local bill is adopted, it comes back to us, and then we decide at that time to have a discussion on if and how we do this. And there are several counties around that, well, in fact, the courts ruled in a multi-member districts and single-member districts are unconstitutional in the state election. It has never been adjudicated in a local election and the makeup of this board. So, to me, when I say that District 1 voters and District 3 voters are disenfranchised is the fact that they can only elect their representative every 4 years. So there's several different ways you could do this. You could do 5 members at large, where anybody in the county could do this. You could do 4 members, distinct districts, and 1 at large. You could do 3 distinct districts and 2 at large. So there are several different makeups of how the commission board would be elected. And so that's what I've been seeking, is fairness in the election process. And so I make a motion. Have you guys all seen the new resolution that the county attorney drafted? It's the exact same resolution as we had before, with the exception of, if you would read that, with the exception of the other one had that we were going to make up of 3 distinct districts and 2 at large. Just a minute, if you'll read that.
Whereas since 1978, the 5-member board of the Macon County Board of Commissioners have been elected from 3 districts, with a single member elected from District 1, which includes LJ, Flats, Highlands, and Sugar Fork, a single member from District 3, which includes Burningtown, Cartucket, Cali, and Nantahala, and 3 members with staggered terms from District 2, which is Iowa, Mill Shoal, North Franklin, East Franklin, South Franklin, Union, and Smithbridge. And whereas as a result of this structure, potential candidates from District 2 are eligible to file for election every 2 years, while potential candidates from the single-member districts 1 and 3 may only file for the election every 4 years. Now therefore, it is resolved by the Macon County Board of Commissioners as follows. Number 1, the Macon County Board of Commissioners requests that the North Carolina General Assembly grant the board the authority to determine how its voting districts shall be divided, provided the districts are created fairly and in a manner consistent with state law. 2, further, that this change begin in the election cycle for members of the Macon County Board of Commissioners beginning in 2028. 3, that this resolution shall be forwarded to the senator and representatives who represent Macon County in the North Carolina General Assembly, and a copy be retained in the office of the clerk to the Board of Commissioners, adopted this day of 2025. Josh Young, Chairman.
So I make a motion that we approve that resolution and send it into the General Assembly.
Hear a motion by Commissioner Sherrill,
Second.
second by Commissioner Antoine. Further discussion?
When you say 3 districts,
That, go ahead and I'll.
okay, when you say 3 districts, and that's, you've got 3 commissioners coming out of those 3 districts, right?
Correct.
Then you got 2 districts that are at large, which means, help me, that other people in that 3 districts can also run as an at-large. You could end up having 5 commissioners out of 3 districts and no representation from 2.
No, you will have, Commissioner Shields, you will have 3 distinct districts.
I got
It
that.
will be equal in population, which you have 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So then you're 2 at large, but this equation is completely gone out of this resolution. That is off the table until the state or the legislators approve this resolution. None of that comes into play. All we're saying is we think that the election process is unfair, and there are community members that are disenfranchised of the election and seeking office. So that's where this got muddy the last time, was the folks down in Raleigh are not going to tell us how we're going to district Macon County. It will be up to the Board of Commissioners to change it or not change it. But I also question how long it's been since there has been a population study in all these precincts of Macon County. So that's how it's all made up, is your districts are made up by population. And so when you have an area that is growing faster than anywhere else, there should be a study so that each one of these precincts are equal and districts are equal in size.
So, John,
Sir.
does that mean you'll have one seat per district and the two at-large seats anybody can basically run? So it gives all three districts will have an opportunity for somebody to be able to run every 2
That is
years
correct.
instead of just District 2.
But then you have alternating seats, so it's not like you're going to have two people from the same district running for those two large seats at the same time, because they will be alternating. And it would have been, it was the cleanest and the easiest in this election cycle, because you have three people that are seeking office. So you would have someone in District 2 that would be coming off
Right.
of the, okay? So, but you could still run as an at-large seat. So so realistically, all of this stuff is to be discussed down the road. It don't have to change. But anyways, I think it needs to,
Let me share with you my thoughts real quick. I have the opportunity to run every 2 years. All right, you don't. So I agree, there's a problem with the system. I think my fundamental problem with this, and I'm not picking on you, is I try to be very consistent. But we changed the agenda, right? So we can, discuss this stuff before the public hearing. I think I would probably support this on next month's agenda, right? Put it on the agenda, publish it, let the public come and speak about it. We'll take input, and if you can wait a month, I would have a problem supporting this.
okay. Number one, you don't have to have a public hearing, because this is only asking the state to give us the ability to look into it.
No, I understand that. It's a fundamental philosophy for me. We just added it today. I talked to you yesterday. I haven't heard anything about it. I feel like we put it on next month's agenda as an agenda item. The public wants to speak, they speak. If they don't, they don't. And I'm speaking for myself. And, John, I think it's a good move. We've talked about this for years now. And I think it's probably the right move.
Well, the other side of that is the General Assembly is going into their short session, and this needs to get back through the Rules Committee so they can take it up in the short session. And delaying it is going to cause, we delayed it before and when it was approved. And so, and I don't think it's any big issue. All we're doing is
Can I give my 2 cents?
is asking them for their blessings.
So just my 2 cents on it as the District 3 representative. The reason that this has come back up is because when I came on, Representative Gillespie asked for a new resolution, because I'd come on at that time. At the time, I don't think I was ready for it. I'll tell you, I'd support it tonight. I'll support it next month, whenever it comes up. Because what it is just what you said. It's just to send it to the state, for them to say yes, and then let's try to figure out what the best possible solution is, whether that's 2 or 1, or we don't do anything with it. But I think it's worth the discussion to have. So either way, if it goes tonight or goes next month, I would support at least looking at it. I think it's, in fairness, I think that is the right thing to do. Somehow, some way, figure out the best thing, and I'm sure there's people out there that can do that. So
In other words, like, it doesn't change anything. We just send it to the assembly, so we still have an opportunity to give everyone a chance next month to come in and speak on it.
I mean, they're not gonna see this before
Yeah, it
next
doesn't
month.
change anything
But they
until
have to,
we change it.
they have to get it into the Rules Committee to even see if they're gonna hear it. They approved it the last time. And so, and then it was up to Representative Gillespie and Senator Corbin to put it on the floor to have a vote. Those people in Raleigh don't care what Macon County's doing in their election process. And I think nothing has changed in this process from 23 when we passed it before, and nothing's changed now. I just like for them to give us permission to look into it. And until we get their blessings, we can't do anything. And so that's why I made the motion, and I would like to see it voted on and up or down.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Sherrill, second by Commissioner Antoine, right? Any further discussion?
The only thing we're doing is get permission to discuss it.
That's
By
correct.
the state.
Sure.
Yes, the state has to give us.
Permission.
Yes, we agree with you. There is an issue, and you guys figure out how to do these election districts.
One more question. At that time, if we decided we were going to change it at that time, would there need to be a public hearing or?
It doesn't have to be a public hearing,
I mean, I was just asking the question. If we approve this tonight, just to go down there and then we bring it back and say, this is what we want to do, we
Or
don't
not
have to have
do.
one, or we do.
Yeah, and I haven't submitted this type of bill other than the last time for this request, except for in 2023. And then that one, we had this specific request as to what it was going to look like. Yeah, and I think John probably is more in the know on what, he probably had conversations with Senator Corbin and Senator Gillespie about what they will and will not. So I don't know if they'll accept it with giving that authority to the county, or if we have to submit a plan, but you can always run those cycles and see what they say, and they could come back and say, no, we need a specific plan, or no, we're gonna just decide to go with it. I don't know.
Well, either way, I agree with Chairman Young. Go through this, we can approve it tonight, but still give the public an opportunity to come in and just kind of voice their thoughts on it. I think it's only fair.
Oh, I don't think that a lot of people understand it, really. I mean.
Right, and I mean,
and
that'd give a
we've-
chance.
We've worked on this for a long time, and it has nothing to do with trying to get the upper hand or anything like that. It's fairness. If you have two people that are super duper top-notch leaders in District 1 or District 3, and only one of them can serve, and then the next term, that person has to run against that other person and try to boot them out of office, and it costs a lot of money to do this, and it's just, I think it's fair.
All right, you guys ready? All in favor, please raise your right arms and state aye for the record. Aye. Oppose? Aye. Motion passes 4-1. You know, the funny thing about being chairman, you sign your name on the resolution. Whether you support it or not. And I don't disagree, I just took the principled approach.
Oh, I understand.
All right.
And I appreciate it.
Moving on. New business. Discussion on the Macon County Planning Board ordinance. Attorney Eric Rodenauer and Planning Permitting Development Joe Allen. Joe, you made it.
We want to. You want to start, Eric?
I can start, so it's, I think it's, the board has requested Joe and I to look at the possibility of reducing the number of the planning board to a reasonable number that might allow a greater likelihood that the members will show up and be able to accomplish county business. I think there's been or understand that there's been a problem with getting quorums. And so, tasked with that, Joe and I have been exploring the different ways of what that can look like. From a legal standpoint, you're only required to have 3. I think that Joe and I would both agree that you're going to get a better understanding and better feel, better comment if you have somewhere between 5 to 7. The other issue is the current ordinance that's in place with regard to the planning board has been the one that the county's had since 1972. That ordinance does have representatives requirements from Highlands and from the town of Franklin. Depending on how many you want to go and whether you want to include or not include or keep that, that's, I guess, the discussion that you all need to let us know. There are currently a number of vacancies, and Joe sent me the list. Joe, if you want to explain where we are on appointments and when they come off and where we are this time next month with regard to the actual number that we have on the board and whether we need to appoint or whatever, that'll probably be most helpful.
Okay. So planning board is 11-seat board. Currently, we have 10 members. Ben Laster's term expired November 8th. So we're down 10, right? We're down to 10 board members right now. Mark Berry and Gene Owens' terms expired the 12th or 13th of December. So that will get us to 8 at the end of this month, 8 planning board members. We have 2 other planning board members whose term expires February 21st, which will put you at 6. Just looking out, so that's by February, March, we could be at a 6-member board without doing anything other than not filling seats. One thing to remember, though, Ben Lefford's term does expire in April of '26, so that would kick us to 5 at that point, with those 2 members, one from Town Highlands and one from Town Franklin, still being on the board as voting members.
So you'd have 11 people on your board.
We currently have 11 people on the board. We could potentially have 5 members on our board by May, just by not filling seats, if that's what we chose.
Does that include a commissioner?
Commissioners are liaisons. They're not voting members.
As the appointed liaison to the planning board by Commissioner Young in January, I have attended 0 meetings because of the lack of business for the planning board, or whatever the case may be. So that's why, some time ago I questioned, even is a planning board needed? And they're an advisory board, and I would like for the council to elaborate on this a little bit, but my understanding that this board could act as the planning board. I think it's unfair to the members of the planning board to be called a week before the meeting, the scheduled meeting, and it's been canceled. And in fact, that was corrected because the first time I went to a planning board meeting, I didn't know it had been canceled. And so I think that Macon County Commissioner has a board, has a liaison to the planning board that is a non-voting member. And I would like to see that the town of Franklin and the town of Highlands also be liaisons to the planning board if we continue to have a planning board as a non-voting member.
That's where I was going with my question. I think that's fair enough. I think it should be a 5-member board. have those three just as liaisons to the town of Highlands, town of Franklin.
But in your rulings here, under the Section 3 membership roles and terms of office, it specifies that you have Highlands and Franklin as 10 and 11. Then the other 9, I guess, comes from their
Yes.
area. But are you saying now this needs to be changed? We just changed it, didn't we?
I don't think we changed it. I think we just rewrote it, right, Tammy? It says the same as it's said since we've had a planning board. Yes, but that would definitely have to be changed. And I think that's what this discussion is about, is whether that's what you guys are wanting us to do, is make these changes.
I guess when I read it, I thought it was changed, and that was the way it was. Because all the other pieces I read, it showed it had been changed, the other pieces in this thing, right?
There was no changes made.
General powers and duties and things like that, that's all stayed the same.
The legality part of it is, I don't know if it's legal or not, but I would almost recommend dissolving the current planning board and this body act as the planning board and possibly having a committee or something like that to handle the ordinances. That's just my feeling on it, because there's definitely gonna have to be some changes to how the structure of the planning board is made up. And without having any business, what's the purpose of having a planning board?
But I believe, excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, I'm done.
But I believe, I may be wrong, the law says that we have to have a planning board.
So, yeah, I can address that. So, under this, and I say it's new, roughly 2020 was the new Chapter 160D, and that is the land use planning chapter of the North Carolina General Statutes. And that one says that if you've got any ordinances or zoning that is applicable, that is a land use zoning ordinance, then you do have to have either a planning board, or at the very least, if the Board of Commissioners is serving as the planning board, you still have to have a review board. And that's under 160D-604. So, and the reason therefore we have to have the planning board, or at least its review board, is because we have an airport hazard ordinance, a building height ordinance, we have all of building code enforcement, farmland preservation, flood ordinance, high impact ordinance, which has to do with the asphalt plants, chip mills, crypto mining, motorsports, solid waste, sexually oriented businesses, sign control, soil erosion and sedimentation, subdivision, watershed wireless. So all those fall under 160D. So as a result, you do have to have, the statutes therefore require that you have either this planning board or this review board. I think it's, if you all wanted to be the planning board, I don't think it really changes anything, because you still have to, any revisions you're going to make to this still has to go through this review committee. So it's, I don't know if it's kind of 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. You still have to have this review board that still has to serve as the advisory board to, now they're just basically serving as an advisory board to your planning board if you all assumed that role. So I don't know if you gain anything by assuming the roles of the planning board. I guess that's kind of where I am on that. I would say, look, I would say the issue is going to be more, how many members do you want this to be, so that it is more effective and efficient, so that John doesn't keep getting called and having it on his calendar that he's going to be here at this time and place, and then gets called and said there's not going to be enough people there. My 2 cents.
Well, a few thoughts I have. How many members sit on the tax appeal board? Does anybody know?
That's only, is it 3 or 5?
Got to have 5.
5 on the tax review?
I think that they've got to have 5.
There's 5 there. There's 5 on our board. There's 5 on the school board. DSS is 3. I feel like there's a common denominator. You know, I wouldn't mind to have, I would encourage membership from Highlands and other communities, but I feel like if our own board is a liaison, I think it's appropriate for the town board to be a liaison and the Franklin board to be a liaison. Likewise, we would be to their board, hopefully. And then we would have membership from those communities represent, their areas. So I'm okay with, I have no problem with that. We've had a hard time, with attendance. And I think it'd be a real intimate board.
So if that's the way it would go, by April or May, there would be 4 members, correct?
They would be,
If the two,
they would be 3 members. So you'd have to, at that point, you'd have to appoint 2
Yes.
members.
Which we could do that well before April, right? March.
But now, if this is the time, if the direction that we're leaning is increased membership, this is definitely the time for us, the easiest time for us to do it as far as members coming off the board. It's gonna fall in place pretty good.
Through attrition.
Yeah.
And not having to, I think that's the right
Sounds
move.
good.
so how do we get to that point if we change the makeup of the planning board legality, if we reduce the membership or the members, what do we need to do moving forward?
Because so I named those different ordinances that we have that require, all those require under 160D, they all require a public hearing before you can amend those. Planning board, that requirement is likewise under 160D. It doesn't specifically say that if you're going to change the rules of the planning board that you have to have a public hearing, but because it's under 160D, and I don't think we're in any rush, I would say let's go ahead and have a public hearing if the board's inclined. I mean, it's your discretion to do that. And then be thinking about it, go ahead and discuss it all you want, and then have a public hearing, get the public comment. That might help flesh out who's going to serve, what membership you want on that board between now and January, and then you could vote on it after the public hearing in January.
It's good.
Perfect.
Good with that? All right, so it sounds like we need a motion for a public hearing Tuesday, January 13th. Is that right? Hear a motion by Commissioner Breeden,
Second.
second by Commissioner Sherrill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Please let the record reflect 4-1. All right.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. New business, item B, approval of resolution giving notice to all candidates for the sheriff and register of deeds positions in Macon County. Eric Ridenauer.
Okay, so in the event that, this is the resolution we likewise passed last time in the election year when it was the year for the register of deeds and the sheriff to run. Under the current law, if a new sheriff is voted in, the challenger is voted in, including the register of deeds, then they would, according to the statutes, inherit the same pay scale that their predecessor had, unless we gave notice during the application term, for lack of a better word, because I'm fumbling over my words, that they're going to be, that pay scale is going to go back to what, based upon the individual candidate's qualifications and where they'd fall on the pay scale. So in other words, if the incumbent sheriff and the incumbent register of deeds are reelected, their pay scale stays where it is, or they follow their own pay scale. If a new challenger gets elected, then they would fall under the pay scale according to their experience on their own personal qualifications. So this is just giving notice that whoever wins doesn't automatically inherit the existing Register of Deeds and Sheriff's pay scale.
All right. Pretty cut and dry.
Approve the resolution as presented.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Breeden.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shields. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Tammy, 5-0.
And Tammy, just as a reminder, I know you know that, but that will then go to Ms. Thibault at the Board of Elections so she can give notice.
All right, moving on. Old business, item C, North Carolina Office of State Budget Management Capital Grant Application. Manager Cabe.
Mr. Chairman, Office of State Budget Management actually opened up a grant process for capital grants for counties that were affected by Hurricane Helene. And it's specifically for projects that fell outside of the purview of FEMA public assistance programs, either projects that didn't qualify or would not have been eligible for that. But it did have to be some type of storm-related issue or occurrence, either with Helene, and they actually expanded that a little to include other storms. And there are very few applications that were being submitted in Western North Carolina. So we actually used Southwestern Commission to help us develop a grant application. We put together a grant project for 4 particular areas for us for consideration. One of them is some improvements to Colasaja Park, which is some electrical improvements to the structures over there, the parking lot, and some new slab construction for a storage building over there. One of them is for some drainage remediation at Parker Meadows in the wetland area that we have up there that tends to stay wet. And also to resurface and repave the 3,900 feet of that walkway out there that runs right along the creek that gets damaged. The third one is some stream bank work at the Tassie Park and along with some bridge repairs to that facility there. And then the final one is actually complete replacement of Arthur Drake Boardwalk that we've talked about before. It's been damaged over the years there. And all said and told, the 4 requests total $1,276,768.55 with no local match required. So I would just like your approval to officially submit that grant request to the OSBM folks.
Wonderful.
And does that grant request cover all of it?
Yes, that covers all 4 projects.
I'll need to get with you, so when I have a next week liaison meeting with Frogs, make sure I've got all this in my head.
Absolutely.
Make a motion that we approve the capital grant application request as presented.
Thank you. I hear a motion by Commissioner Breeden.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion?
Can we add in the needs at the horse park?
It's a little stretch on the flood, but
No, I'm good.
All right. All in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Tammy, 5-0. All right, that wraps up old business. Any issues with the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Sherrill. Second by Commissioner Breeden. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. All right, 5-0, Ms. Tammy. All right, appointments. Manager Cabe, Consolidated Consolidated Human Services Board.
I've struggled with that a lot.
That was
That's a
hard to
whole
read.
new acronym that you have to put out there. Obviously, one of the considerations we have tonight, and Eric can join me in this conversation, is we will move to a Consolidated Health and Human Services Agency in January. You do have to appoint a board, and the process that we discussed was taking the existing Board of Health and transitioning them to become the appropriate number of members of the Consolidated Human Services Board. Is that correct, Eric?
That's correct.
And we also advertise for positions, but as of the deadline, and even today, I don't think we've received, we have 11 members on the health board. We advertise for 4 more members. We don't have any more applications. You're still okay tonight if you appoint the 11 members to the Consolidated Human Services Board. There's plenty of folks there to have a quorum, and then we can go through the process. Even at the January meeting, we don't officially become consolidated until the middle of January. We can consider more applications and try and finish filling out the total 15 members of that board.
Correct. So, and to add to that, under the new statute on the membership requirements, according to the statute, and if anybody's fact-checking me, that's NCGS 153A-77C. We are required to have a number of different professionals and 4 members from the public at large, plus a county commissioner, and they get pretty specific. We're covered on engineer, dentist, nurse, pharmacist, psychiatrist, physician, veterinarian, commissioner, and we've got, depending on if Mr. Sherrill wants to stay on as a member, I think we'd put, Barry would serve as the county appointment, as the county commissioner, and then you could decide if you're going to stay on as an at-large member or not. But we do need you to stay on as an at-large at least until we get going here through January. So what we're looking for specifically now, as far as everyone listening and out here, talk to those people that you know, we're specifically looking for a psychologist, an optometrist, and a social worker. Those people are required to be residents of the county, and we're short, I think, in that profession as far as that goes. So if we can't fill it, we can't fill it. But that's what the statute says we're supposed to do. The state does recognize that in some of the more rural counties, some of those may be hard to fill, in which case they'd just not be filled. And then still 1 or possibly 2, depending on Commissioner Sherrill's at-large position, on whether we need at-large. So again, we're looking right now for psychologist, optometrist, social worker, 1 member at-large who's a consumer of health services, possibly 2 of those. So please spread the word, put in your applications. If we could get those in before January 13th, so we could, actually before the January meeting, then we could appoint them and be up and ready to go with as full a board as we can get when that takes effect. Tonight, what we need to do is go ahead and have the Board of Commissioners appoint the existing health board, and I'll name them, to the Consolidated Health Services Agency Board, and then they will take a new oath then at the Board of Health meeting. And I guess we move that up to the 16th for Christmas, so we're meeting right next week.
Yes, but they won't take their oath until the January meeting.
We'll take it till the January meeting. Okay, so those people that the board is appointing tonight are Garrett Higdon, Dr. Matt Corbin, Angela Stone, Courtney Patrick, Dr. Feibelman, Dr. Tote, Dr. Lenzo, Commissioner Breeden, Ava Ammons, Steve Grissom, and John Sherrill. And so if we could get a motion to appoint those to the Consolidated Health Services Agency Board, that will get our board in place, ready to roll.
The 2 commissioners are liaisons.
No, they're voting members.
They're voting members.
So I had to go back in as a member of the community because we have Commissioner Breeden as the actual. But I think, Tammy, also with this, we talked about you have to be a consumer of health services. And I got confused. I thought, well, if you have to go in and participate in the health department, but it's actually well drillers, septic installers, environmental health stuff. All those people could apply.
Yes, it's anybody that uses any service offered by the health department or animal control,
I
so.
thought it was dental, medical, and all that, but then once I really started thinking about it, so put that out there that anyone that is, that uses any of those services are eligible to apply and serve. And realistically, I will stay there as long as I am needed. But I would much rather for the general public to come in and get involved in some of this. So I'm not going anywhere until I can. All right.
I would like to make a motion that we appoint the 11 members of the Macon County Board of Health to the Consolidated Human Services Board.
I'll second that motion.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Breeden, second by Commissioner Sherrill. I would like to say our chairman of the Board of Health's in attendance. Thanks for being here tonight. Any comments? Thoughts?
Talked the last meeting, our board was, submitted the approval, so thank y'all for working with us. And we're happy to serve in whatever capacity it is.
Well, thanks for being here tonight.
And also Dr. Feibelman, he is a retired psychiatrist and he's not licensed in North Carolina, so he's trying to figure out what it's going to take to get his license to serve in that.
Well, and so we looked into that further, and Tammy, if you want to comment on that, yeah, go ahead.
So I talked to the folks in Clay County, and they had been notified some time ago when they did their consolidation that for the small rural communities like us, that requirement to be licensed in North Carolina will be waived as long as the person is a resident of the county. So he's good where he's at, so.
Good enough. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right arm and state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? None. All right, Ms. Tammy, 5-0. All right. Thank you, Garrett. Chairman Higdon, should I say? Planning Board. I guess we just discussed the Planning Board. I think we'll just take that up next month. All right. Do we need a closed session?
We do not, for at least from my standpoint.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Breeden. Second by Commissioner Sherrill. All in favor, say aye.
Merry Christmas, everybody.